Now at 11. Your voice, your vote, Election Night 2023. Tonight, live team coverage of all the big races.
The balance of power in Virginia up for grabs.
Both sides vying for key Senate wins.
What a shift in power could mean for Virginians. And in Maryland, big mayoral races that affect local communities.
And Commonwealth's attorney races with a lot at stake.
It all comes down to your vote.
7 News
Election Night
coverage starts right now.
Tonight is a night that will have a dynamic impact on the issues that are affecting our communities. Voters in both Virginia and Maryland deciding who will represent them in office.
That's because all 140 seats in Virginia's General Assembly are on the line tonight, and we have up-to-the-minute results for all the local races scrolling right now at the bottom of your screen.
And we're bringing you live team coverage from Fredericksburg to Bowie and everywhere in between on this pivotal night. So let's get right to those big races.
Now, one of the closest races now has a projected winner, and that's Virginia Senate District 30, which includes Manassas and parts of Prince William County.
It is an open seat, and Democrat Danica Roem is a projected winner over Republican Bill Wolf by just 4 percentage points. 7 News' Christian Flores is live from Roem's election night event in Gainesville, Virginia. Christian, you just heard from her. What did she say?
Well, she thanked the voters out here because, as you mentioned, this is going to be one of the closest races in all of the state, where even national party leaders had some interest in this race. Now, this party is quite empty right now once the Democrats here learned the news after the AP projecting Danica Roem winning this seat, crossing the Hall of Richmond from the House of Delegates to the Senate. But throughout her campaign, she had really hit a couple messages hard. That's improving roads down here in Prince William County. That was also expanding programs for free meals for school children, and also really making sure data centers don't encroach on homes and national parks. She did have a couple bills in the House of Delegates regarding that. In the Senate, she wants to do the exact same thing. Now, we spoke with her moments after the AP declared her or projected her to be the victor. Take a listen to what she had to say she'll do day one in the state Senate.
Here's the bills I will be filing immediately when I get there. Number one is a constituent service request for the community of Thoroughfare, where we're going to be able to make sure that people who have family buried in cemeteries on private property have the interment rights that they need to be able to do that. This is a big deal for Native and African American communities in Thoroughfare. I fought for this bill for the last 2 years. The Republicans killed it for no reason at all on third read this year on crossover day, and I told them I will bring this bill back, and I will. Number two, I'll be filing a bill for universal free school breakfast and lunch for all kids, no matter where they live, so we can eliminate the constant school meal debt from ever existing.
Again, Danica Roem moving offices from the House of Delegates to the state Senate, an important race for Democrats to keep their majority in the state Senate. Reporting live from Manassas, Christian Flores, 7 News.
Christian, thank you. Now let's get to tonight's another close race, and one of the most expensive. It's Virginia's Senate District 31 seat, which represents parts of Loudoun County and Fauquier County.
Yeah, Democrat Russet Perry is the presumptive winner right now against Republican Juan Pablo Segura. They pumped a ton of money into this race. This is a race where more than $11 million was spent between the candidates. Perry spoke less than 90 minutes ago at her victory party in Leesburg. Here's what she had to say.
You all know we talked about from the very beginning just that this was, the most competitive race in the district, most competitive race in the state, and you all put in the work. You put in the work to win it.
7 News on your side's Nick Minock is live in Ashburn, where Perry's opponent Juan Pablo Segura did not get the result they wanted tonight.
Yeah, he hasn't conceded yet, but I did speak to his campaign. We're expecting a statement from Juan Pablo Segura shortly. And hands down, this is probably the most expensive state Senate race this cycle in Northern Virginia. You've seen the ads. We saw Juan Pablo Segura inside the Belmont Country Club right after Russet Perry spoke to her crowd in Leesburg, and he was thanking his supporters, hugging his supporters. Segura spent a lot of time across Loudoun County and Fauquier County. This was not the result he was hoping for. He was backed by Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin. Youngkin gave him a lot of support, a lot of money. Segura focused his campaign on education in Loudoun County and crime and the economy, the cost of living. But Russet Perry focused much of her campaign on abortion access. And you could argue it worked because it appears she's the projected winner at this time. Here's what Russet Perry told her supporters about 90 minutes ago. Take a listen.
I knocked, I think, more doors than any other candidate in the entire state Senate. But I heard not just choice, right, but our democracy. I'm concerned about our democracy.
And this was an open seat. Republican Jill Vogel, as state senator, left this seat vacant. It was in Republican hands, so this is a big blow to Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and his hopes to flipping the state Senate. Now, Russet Perry is a former CIA officer, and she served as a prosecutor in the Loudoun County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office. And I also believe she worked as a prosecutor, a special prosecutor in Fauquier County, which is also part of Senate District 31. Here in Loudoun County, a mixed bag for Republicans and Democrats. Republicans appear to have swept the county-wide constitutional offices for sheriff, potentially Commonwealth's attorney here in Loudoun County, treasurer, commissioner of the revenue. It looks like Democrats did pretty well with the Board of Supervisors and the school board. We'll have much more ahead tomorrow morning on 7 News. Live in Ashburn, Nick Minock, 7 News.
All right, Nick, thank you. And here's a race that may be one of the biggest surprises of the night. It's for the Loudoun County Commonwealth's attorney. Republican challenger Bob Anderson has a lead over incumbent Buddha Bibarai. But Bibarai tells 7 News tonight that she is not conceding. As you look at those numbers there, appears to be about 1,000 votes separating the two.
Well, also in Loudoun County, this is a race that 7 News has tracked extensively. It's for the Board of Supervisors chair incumbent Democrat Phyllis Randall. She has a slight edge over Republican Gary Katz.
And back to Virginia's Senate races, we want to get to District 27, which includes parts of Stafford and Spotsylvania counties, as well as Fredericksburg.
Republican Tara Durant has a slight lead now over Democrat Joel Griffin. This is another race where a lot of money was spent. When I say a lot, we're talking $6 million in campaign funds raised between the candidates. Now, our Megan Clark has been covering that race and several others extensively, and she's live now in Fredericksburg, where Griffin is not yet conceding as well. Megan?
Jonathan, Michelle, that's right. No concession here tonight. The Senate 27 race has not been called. A Democrat, Joel Griffin, trailing Republican Tara Durant by less than 2,000 votes right now. He gave an impromptu speech to the crowd here saying he hopes to know more tomorrow. However, House of Delegates District 65 candidate Joshua Cole also giving a speech declaring victory over his Republican challenger Lee Peters, even though that race has also not been called. And here is what Cole had to say.
I am super excited. First of all, I'm grateful to my family, my friends, the voters of the brand new 65th District. I'm excited to go back to Richmond to keep working for our working families, making sure that we have officially put a block to Governor Youngkin's attempted abortion ban, and making sure that we're just fighting for Lottie Dottie and everybody, as I always say.
Now, again, neither race called here tonight, but as Griffin said, he hopes to know more tomorrow, possibly even in a few hours. We will be watching those numbers for you throughout the night and into the morning. Live in Fredericksburg, Megan Clark, 7 News.
Megan, thanks.
And of course, all of these races in Virginia will go towards shaping the balance of power in Virginia's House and Senate.
Yeah, our Tom Rousey is live at our alert desk. He's telestrator to show us where that balance stands at this moment. So, Tom, how close is it?
Well, Jonathan, we have something fascinating happening in the Virginia Senate right now. It's currently controlled by Democrats, and you may think they're in good shape right now to keep control. They're ahead 20-16, 40 seats up for grabs going into the night. What this means is Democrats have clinched at least a tie, but here's the deal. Republicans, if they can get a tie, they've got the tie-breaking vote, which would be Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears. She's a Republican, so they only need 20. I've looked at the 4 outstanding races. Republicans are almost certain to win 2 of them. The other 2 Democrats hold razor, and I mean razor, thin leads. So this is not over at this point, even though you would just look at this and say it's looking bad for Democrats. Now, it's a different story in the House. Republicans entered the night holding the majority in the House. They are in great danger of losing it at this point. You see, Democrats have 47 seats called for them. You need 51 for a majority. Republicans just 40 at this point. And that being said, in just the last minute, another one did come in called for a Republican. So let me update that. So 41 at this point. Now, Republicans do appear to be ahead in about half to a slight majority of the remaining races. Really doesn't look like it's going to be enough to make up the difference, though. So Republicans in danger of losing the House, which they control, but Democrats still somewhat in danger of losing the Senate, which they control. So could be a long night here, could go into tomorrow before we know the final results. But stick with us. As these are called, we will update this, Jonathan.
All right. Tom, thanks for that. And 7 News will be back with more live election coverage for you just ahead for us. As we head to break, here are the results for some of the other races we're following in our area. Everyone is watching these races to see if the balance of power shifts in Virginia.
And we want to bring in now our Dave Lucas. And Dave, yes, indeed, the reason why so many folks focus on Virginia elections is because it's usually a good predictor for 2024.
It's these off-year elections that Virginia runs. Sometimes they're bellwethers, sometimes there's not. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens tonight across the Commonwealth. And for some early perspective, let's bring in Dr. Stephen Farnsworth. He's a political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, and frankly, the guy we've leaned on for years to try and put Virginia election results into clear perspective. We know about the closely contested races, but Dr. Farnsworth, this year, all 140 House and Senate seats were newly redrawn, and I'm betting there were lots of voters who, when they got into the booth, said, wait a minute, I don't recognize these names. Do you think that's going to have some sort of fundamental effect on the outcome tonight?
Well, I do think that this is an important change as a result of the fact that partisan majorities are no longer drawing legislative districts in Virginia. The boundaries are not being drawn by the incumbents. And so that means that there's going to be a lot of new districts. These are now designed to be more competitive, to be more aligned with county and city boundaries and things like that. And so you're absolutely right. For a lot of people, they look at the ballot and they say, I don't see any incumbents here, even when the incumbent that they had voted for in the past might be representing a district another few blocks over.
I want to widen out the view just a little bit, too. If the GOP governor delivers a solidly Republican state, in other words, winning, you've got the governor's mansion, you've got the House, but if you get the Senate, too, how much does that enhance Glenn Youngkin's national profile and reputation?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that the governor has put all of his cards on the table with this contest. He invested heavily getting the Republican candidates that he wanted during the primary stage earlier this year. And then, of course, he's been all in on some of these close races, including the ones that you're mentioning in the Northern Virginia region. This will be very much a referendum on the government, and so on the governor rather. And so if this is a good night for Republicans, then it'll be a good night for Glenn Youngkin going forward. He needs some wins to get some legislative successes. The last 2 years, of course, that he's been governor, there's been a Democratic majority in the Senate that's blocked a lot of what he's wanted to do. So it requires, I think, in these divided partisan times, for the governor or the president to have the party in the Congress or in the state legislature of the same party identification, or else you're not going to get a lot done legislatively.
Is there a canary in the coal mine in your view? What's the one race you're really looking at to see if that's a bellwether for across the state?
Well, you know, the one that I'm actually looking at is the Segura-Perry race, the one that looks so close that we talked about a moment ago on air. And that is just a really a nail-biter here in the contest. But the numbers really do suggest that the argument with respect to abortion, that 15-week ban that the governor has talked about, hasn't been a magic bullet for Republicans in Northern Virginia. The reality is that a lot of voters still seem to be very focused on this abortion question and really angry with respect to the reversal of Roe versus Wade. And I think that's been a big challenge for Republicans in this election cycle, talking about abortion in a way that connects with voters.
Dr. Stephen Farnsworth, political science professor at the University of Mary Washington, and a guy that we really lean on heavily in these elections. We will talk again. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Nick Minogue spoke with Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin and asked what voters can expect if Republicans come out ahead.
All right, let's say you hold the House and you flip the Senate in Virginia. Day one, what are your legislative goals? What kind of legislation can people expect?
Well, they should expect us to move aggressively forward with reducing the cost of living and providing more tax relief. They should expect us to be back in parents and back in the blue and continuing to fund behavioral health transformation. Virginians are overtaxed. We're working hard to bring taxes down. Send a group to Richmond that will work with me, not against me.
Governor Youngkin is also calling for tougher penalties for drug dealers who sell fentanyl.
And over the weekend, Maryland Governor Wes Moore came across the river and he was campaigning in Virginia for Democrats. He says the election in the Commonwealth could have far-reaching consequences.
I need one of these signs because I'm excited for this. I'm excited. I'm excited because we are determined to not just have you as a senator, but to know that your leadership is going to correspond well beyond not just Manassas and Virginia, but your leadership matters to all of us around the country. So
As you see there, Governor Moore joining Delegate Danica Roem and Josh Thomas on the campaign trail and spoke with volunteers for their campaigns. So a lot at stake, and what happens tonight could be a big indication of what could happen nationwide.
So we want to bring in now our chief political correspondent, Scott Thuman. Scott, what can you tell us about the role of Virginia in this election? Because if you look back at past cycles, there is some sort of correlation between what happens here and then what follows the following year for the general.
Well, you're right about that. And Michelle and Jonathan, everyone wants to assign some level of importance to what we're going to see in the Commonwealth tonight. I think that some of that is going to be too early and a bit overstated, regardless of what happens. If you have the so-called red wave of Virginia that fell short nationally last time, even then, I don't know that that's necessarily going to apply to what we're seeing in 2024. Remember, we are 1 year out from the general election nationally, and a lot is going to happen in between now and then. The themes now of abortion, of some of the gender issues, of what's going on with school boards, may not be so big in 12 months. And in fact, a lot of people who are dissatisfied with both options nationally that appear to be the front runners right now, whether it's Donald Trump or President Biden, are disgruntled. They don't like the numbers. Both of those men are unfavorable in the ratings right now, in the polls. Neither one of them is seen as a glorious champion for the entire country. And so to say that now we can look at what happens in Virginia, that's going to somehow read the tea leaves for us in the future, difficult to try and apply, because ultimately, as we've talked about so many times, people vote with their pocketbooks nationally. And so where is inflation a year from now? Where is the economy a year from now? What is crime doing? Those maybe bigger factors in what we're seeing.
That's what I was just going to ask you, because you brought up some of the talking points as far as abortion and some of the other issues, but last time I checked, those were issues that fell in the top 10, but further down the list, some of them even out of top 10. The big issues are always, James Carville said it back when, it's the economy, stupid.
Right.
People's pocketbook, they vote that way. They also want to know about crime. And also immigration always seemed to be in the top 5 for a lot of people all over geographically across the country. Are those the kinds of things that will take people to the poll and say, this is what I'm going to vote for because those issues resonate with me?
Absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. Abortion is still going to be played up pretty strong regardless, because right now, especially if you're Democrats, what you're seeing is that we've had, if you include tonight with what's going on in Ohio, remember, for audience that may not be paying attention, Ohio's got a vote today on whether or not their state constitution should protect abortion rights for women. And that's happening. That's passing. So what that means is, since Roe was overturned, you've had 7 states now where abortion has been the main ballot issue. And most people have gone to the polls and said, I don't believe in an outright ban. I think that we need to have some rights. That's still going to be a talking point. And you're seeing a lot of money poured into it. Look at how much money was poured into this campaign.
Right.
President Biden had more than $1 million of DNC money, he suggested, be pushed into Virginia elections. So you had national money that was redirected just to try and win these. They think that's a theme, Democrats do, that will help protect seats for them. Virginia is a bit of, as Dave used that phrase, a canary in the coal mine, perhaps, for what's going to happen in the future. But again, take a breath, remember it's a year, and remember the wallet speaks louder than almost any other factor.
And the issues that are important today, a year from now, who knows what the issues will be, the way things are moving right now.
Well, and go back real fast to those approval ratings I was talking about. President Biden's approval ratings, latest numbers from 538 show him at 38%. He's only been lower once with 37.5%, right? So we're seeing him at a bottom, and former President Trump's numbers are underwater. So people's dissatisfaction drives votes. Where will it be 12 months from now?
And how will a verdict change voters' minds as well? That's like a whole other
there's a poll out
that
came out, I think it's a CBS poll out, came out in the past 48 hours.
He's more popular.
The 34% of people like him more after some of these trials have started.
Plot
so
twist.
the irony grows with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so
Scott,
much, Scott. All right, let's bring in our Dave Lucas with a special guest. Dave?
Michelle, thanks. And we are joined right now by former Virginia Governor Doug Wilder, the first African-American ever elected a governor. He's currently a professor at the appropriately named Wilder School at Virginia Commonwealth University. Governor, great to see you. Folks in
Good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Folks in my business love to make elections horse races. But I'm going to ask you, what races are you watching tonight? What do you think are the important ones?
Well, all of them are very important, but as you know, Northern Virginia really does have so many votes, and so many people are looking to see if there's going to be a change there in terms of the party differences. And then the Richmond area had great interest in terms of a casino and how that was going to survive, and it failed last time, and it looks like it's going to fail this time. But I think overall, people are looking to see if being a Democrat or Republican is going to make a real difference. I've always said that Richmond, or Virginia particularly, is not a blue state, nor is it a purple state. It's a people state, and I still think that. And I think whoever wants to win Virginia next time around, when there is a national election, will have to listen to the people and not depend on party.
That's a great perspective. Governor Youngkin staked his statewide, maybe his national prestige on what happens tonight. What's your feeling there? It's a tough thing to stake out. Virginians send their governors to the state house or to the mansion for just one term, and there are some who think that he may have grander ambitions. What do you think?
Well, I think he's been in office, a couple of years. And I think that the people of Virginia would look to see what that has done, what has come about as a result of that. And when you look at one of the things that we described earlier in terms of inflation, we're looking at money and how it's being spent. Is it being wasted? If it is so, have you seen it? Have you done anything about it? If not, now when? And I think there are several things that Governor Youngkin will be having to deal with, some of them of which I brought to his attention already. And the legislature likewise will have to deal with him as it relates to money being wasted at a time when he's being governor. And I think it's very important that he looks at that. And I don't think it should be yesterday. I think it should have been day before yesterday, today, and tomorrow.